Hello, and today we will be discussing the theory of supply. Now, what is the theory of supply? The theory of supply is when the price of a particular market increases, then so does the quantity supplied in that market. But if the price decreases in that market, then so will the quantity supplied. Now, this relationship between price and quantity supplied is called a positive correlation or a direct relationship. If you are familiar with maths, then you will be familiar with this concept. Now, what does a supply curve look like on a graph? Well, we all know what a PPF looks like. So, we have our price going here and the quantity going here, well, that's quantity supplied. Over here we have the origin. Now, for a supply curve looks like this. It slopes upwards. But why do we have a positive correlation, and why does this slope upwards? Well, there are two reasons. Firstly, there's the incentive of producers, of suppliers. Okay, they have incentive of profits. This is because as price increases, then so does their profits. Therefore, they are likely to supply more at a higher price because they will be making more revenue, more income. The second reason is the law of increasing opportunity cost. At every level, when supply increases, so does the opportunity cost of the other resources. Now, to make up for this cost, the price has to increase at each quantity level. So this is a supply curve. Now, what is a supply schedule? What do we mean when we are given a supply schedule? A supply schedule is basically a table of data which shows the price and the quantity supplied at that price. So, for example, you will have a table, hopefully neater than mine, with price written here and quantity supplied here. If price is 4 for apples, for example, quantity might be 100. If price moves up to 8, the quantity might become 200, and so on. This is a supply schedule. Notice that as the price increases, so does the quantity supplied. So we have already seen a supply curve. Now I'll just show you how to actually show on the supply curve that as this positive correlation, that as price increases, so does quantity. So let's just make this a bit darker. Price over here, quantity over here, and basically this is your supply curve. If we have a quantity supply of 10, let's say, then the price will be £5, let's say. But if quantity moves up to 20, then the price will move up to 10 because they have to make up for the cost of making that product. That's another way of looking at the theory of supply. So we see here that quantity has increased and so has price. Along the supply curve, we will see that as supply increases, quantity increases. Supply increases, quantity increases. Supply decreases, quantity decreases. This is a positive relationship. Now, we need to look at the shifts between the supply curve. Why does the supply curve shift? Shifts. So, let me start again by drawing. I could have left what we had actually. Exactly the same thing. Price and quantity. This pen has stopped working. 1 minute. Quantity, price, and so we have the supply curve here, S1. Now for argument's sake, let's say the supply increases to S2. This is called a shift to the left. Shift to the right, because from the angle I'm looking at it, it's the left. So this is a shift to the right, which means it is an increase in supply. Now, if we were to just look at this, that if we had price of £5 again, and remember quantity supplied of apples was, let's say, 10, now for £5 there is 20 apples being produced. This shows that there's an increase. However, if supply shift to the left, S3, then at £5, there will only be 2 apples being produced. This is not very clear. You can see it clearer and more detailed notes on my blog spot, which is written on the About Me section. Now, we need to know, why does the supply curve shift? Why does this happen? So, there are 5 main reasons that you need to know for this. The first is there can be a change in the costs of production. Okay, this means that if the price of raw materials rises, then that is the same as saying there's an increase in the cost of production. Therefore, higher prices need to be charged for it, and also the amount of apples made may decrease because less raw materials will be made, less, for example, soil, if we're looking at apples, will be bought. Okay, so that's the first reason. So changes in costs of production will cause a supply curve to shift. Second is the profitability of alternative products. So for example, we used to listen to CD players, but then when MP3s came out, they were more profitable, they were more popular. Firms switched and started producing that because they were the trend of the time. Therefore, the supply curve shift of the CD players, because now nobody wanted to buy CD players. Third reason is the profitability of joint goods. A joint good is like saying oil and petrol, because petrol comes from oil, it is joint to it. Now, if we look at another example of cattle and leather, the more cattle there is, the more leather can be produced. So if there suddenly is more supply of cattle and we are exposed to more cattle, then the supply of leather will increase, because there is so much more leather to be found. The fourth reason is random shocks. Now, these can be things that businesses can't even take in their planning. They include earthquakes, wars, floods, things that a business doesn't know about. They're random, they're shocks, they just come and they go. And if you have a field and you're supplying apples again, and suppose there's a flood, lots of your crops die, then obviously your supply will shift because it will decrease. The fifth point is future price change. Now, if a firm anticipates that price is going to increase, for example, then they might hold on to stock, or they might increase their supply so that when it does increase, they can make maximum profit. They can be the leaders in selling it. So now taking you through what actually is the theory of supply, that it is a positive correlation. You've seen what it looks like on a graph. You know why it slopes upward. We've looked at what a supply schedule is and the shifts in a supply curve. How does it happen? What does it look like? And why does it happen? The main thing to remember, which is the most important for the examination, is that if it is a non-price determinant, then the supply curve will shift right or left. and if it is if it is a price determinant, basically if something is not affected by price, like for example random shocks, like we said, that has nothing to do with price, then that will shift it up or down. However, if the price changes, then that will be movements along the supply curve at every point. That will be because of the price changes. If it's not to do with price changes, e.g. the profitability of alternative products, then the supply will shift. That is important to remember. Now you can find more clearer and accurate notes on my blogspot, which is written on the side.